So let's talk about this. You're calling it the Rick Pierce Group, but you're still working with Floyd Rose, correct?
That's correct. It started out as a side project to Q5. Floyd and I had lost touch. For listeners that may not know, Floyd is famous as an inventor of a guitar tremolo system that's kind of taken over the rock guitar world, and that's what he's best known for. But he's a very prolific songwriter, and we had a run of pretty good, well-received albums in the '80s by Q5. After that, we kind of lost touch, and as you recall, I started Nightshade, and we went with a little harder vein and did 3 albums as Nightshade. But Floyd and I got back together about 5 years ago and started a collaboration, a songwriting collaboration. It was initially a side project, but it slowly became my main thing. We're lucky to get picked up by Golden Robot Records, actually their subsidiary, Crusader Records. And that's what we're doing now, and it's the main thing, the Rick Pierce Group, and with Floyd as producer and my co-writer.
I've heard the 2 songs, Brick by Brick and TikTok, both fantastic.
Oh, thank you, man.
Just great hard rock.
Yeah, that's definitely my happy place. Just right in the pocket of really growling, snarling tube amps turned up, and it's as simple as that.
That's a good point. You really got an analog kind of sound on these.
Yeah, that's been integral to my approach. But I got to give props to Chris James, the vocalist. He really brings a fresh approach to things. Well, that's because he's so much younger. I was joking. I think he's more impressed by the fact I know the guys in Pearl Jam than that I got to hang out with Angus Young one day.
It's a generational thing, yeah.
Exactly. Props to him and Frankie Rongo drums and Izzy Riem on bass, rounding out the group. But yeah, that's where we're all coming from. And Frankie and Izzy and I have all toured together in various groups. So it all is coming together. We kind of have the same approach. We had our first live rehearsal just a few weeks ago. It's the first time we had been all together, except other than being in the studio, for over a year. Man, it was so nice. My ears were ringing. It was all right.
I know a lot of, I'm still in radio and talking a lot of the modern bands. And I mean, they put albums together and they're all in different parts of the world. But you can't replace being in one studio together and jamming. I don't care if it's on Zoom or whatever. You can't replicate that being all together in one room.
At some point, you got to put it all together and be in the same room. I'll say that all the file sharing and all that stuff, it definitely has its place, and it was indispensable in this project.
Yeah.
But as you say, there's no substitute.
What's the timeline now for a completed project on this?
This is the second single we just released, and Mark Alexander Erber, who is our the head of Golden Robot Records and who signed us, we're so happy to say, he has said, well, after a couple singles, we're going to drop the album. So I think we're looking at an early spring, hopefully coincidentally with being able to get out and play live.
So I got to ask you too, backing up a little bit, you mentioned you knew the Pearl Jam guys. You've been in the Seattle area since late 70s, I believe.
Yeah, you're right.
And you've seen a lot there, starting off with TKO, which, by the way, I was just listening to In Your Face the other day, too. I know you weren't technically part of that album, but you played, though, on it, didn't you?
I played on a couple songs on that, yeah. I rejoined the band right at the final sessions, and then 3 of us left to form Q5 with Floyd Rose and Jonathan Kay. There were other people that are all great players that had their pictures on the album. I think Ken Mary was one of them, fantastic drummer and friend of mine, Scott Earl. But those guys didn't play on it. The rest of us did. And I just got on the tail end, and I only played on a couple songs on that. One of them was I Want to Fight.
That's really the one people know the most, I think, is, I don't know if it was officially a single, but that album was put out. Well, it took a while to put it out, is my point. I think it was recorded, and then it'd take a couple of years or something like that.
Yeah, in fact, I think Q5 came out before In Your Face. I'm not sure about that, but the main guitar on that was Adam Brenner.
Yeah, Adam Baum he became, I believe.
Yeah.
So the crazy thing about that album, it was way ahead of its time. It was way before Guns N' Roses, and you guys weren't in LA. You were up in Seattle and doing this really dark kind of sleazy rock.
I know.
It was crazy. And Brad did a great job in the vocals and putting that together. Do you talk to Brad much anymore?
Oh yeah, in fact, we still collaborate from time to time. I'm a sometime member of his Angels of Dresden, so I've contributed tracks on again and off again to Brad's projects, and we actually have one going now that I'm not sure I'm at liberty to divulge, but I'm definitely in contact with Brad, and we're good friends and still collaborating. But yeah, it was I mentioned that because I ended up doing a one-off recording with Mike McCready, and I wasn't aware that those guys held us in pretty high regard, Brad and I and the rest of us that went before their big smash success. So that's really nice to think about.
I've heard that too, and you think about it, you had TKO there, Queensryche, Metal Church, all out of Seattle.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And Duff McKagan came from there too.
Yes.
So you were there during this whole time when grunge started to take off, but was it really grunge at first? It kind of morphed from rock, or can you kind of explain what you were seeing during the 80s in that scene?
Well, it was during the 80s, it kind of crept up on us. Brad and I did the Suicide Squad EP, and probably that was 88. But it was really in the 90s that the grunge really crested. But the funny thing was, Torch, is that it was all the same people. It was all the same scene. And all of a sudden they started dressing differently. You'd size somebody up and it's like somebody you'd seen the day or maybe the week before who had like their hair teased up to here and wearing, the glam type of attire, wearing their girlfriend's clothes, and like I did. And then all of a sudden it was all, we're doing the kind of the Doc Martens and that whole thing. And it'd be the same people and the same musicians, and a lot of them are very exceptional musicians, but it was more of a style change than different changing of the guard. We were the last ones to wear like peg jeans and go out there, and we were playing the same clubs as Soundgarden had, and it was definitely an uphill slog in those days, but we stuck to our guns.
Do you regret not going along with that scene, or are you fine with where you're at and sticking to the music you like?
I'm fine with what I used to tell people. It's the old cliche that a stopped clock is right twice a day. I don't believe in chasing trends or styles. I got into this loving what I do, and I've never stopped, and I've just always had a sense of what I was trying to do.
So, where do you guys feel you fit in with the Rick Pierce group? Are you fitting in with metal or more classic rock? What kind of shows and festivals are you looking to do?
That's a good question, but the festivals that we had been playing with Nightshade and Q5, I think they have a wide enough scope to have both metal and hard rock bands. We were lucky enough to do Sweden rock, and there was everything from that you could imagine, from Foghat to the most extreme thrash metal. But it's tough to categorize ourselves. But I think probably others would put it in the hard rock category.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not ashamed to play some bluesier sounding things if it's appropriate to the piece. And I know, and Floyd's the same way, since we're writing together.
I think you're in a good spot. It's heavy enough to play along with the power metal, and then you guys, your backgrounds too, of course, come from that too. But on the other hand, I could totally see it along more the AOR melodic rock kind of stuff too, that like Frontiers Records.
Right. We're alumni of Frontiers, but I am very proud to be on label mates with Golden Robot Records, that we're label mates with Rose Tattoo. You never would have said, what are they? Are they metal? But they've done some just cutting, biting, hard rock. And it's an honor to be on the same label with those guys.
That's awesome. I love those guys. So besides Rick Pierce Group, you've had some downtime. You mentioned something you might be doing with Brad. Do you have anything else that you got brewing or that you'd like to work on?
The main focus right now is Rick Pierce Group, and that's what we're going to try to bring it home and get it on the road, because the thing about with that name is that I would feel free then to draw on my entire recorded catalog for material, which is what I ultimately intend to do. But always welcome these side projects like the one with Brad or with Mike McCready. My last one was with both of them. Yeah, that's definitely the main focus right now is our Rick Pierce group, getting the album done and out and getting it out there.
Well, good to hear your voice again, and stay well, and we will talk soon, Rick.
Sounds good, my friend.